Psycho, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Those are just two of the movies that was inspired by one man. Even Silence of the Lambs. But how did this small, quiet, tiny little fella go from being the little oddball of the town to what he became? Well, to quote Mudvayne, every little boy's best friend's always his mom. At least that's what she said.
It's evil! Don't touch it!
It's alive!
I was with you.
They're coming to get you. Power of Christ. This is
Me?
Hello, Mr. Fancy Pants.
What's up, Zach?
How's it going, man? I got my skin suit on. I broke out my nipple belt. I'm ready to rock and roll.
You're gonna have to be wearing that until episode 2.
Shit.
This one's mainly
all right.
well. This is mainly just to get in depth with Ed because I mean I knew the story, but well, I didn't know it. I didn't know it as well as I thought I did.
This is the serial killer, buddy. I don't know what to tell you.
Technically he's not a serial killer because he only went down for 2, and you have to have 3 at a space of so much amount of time. But I agree. I just said technically he's not. I agree that he is.
Out of all the serial killers that we will ever cover, this is probably the only one I feel sorry for.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this is the one that could have been 100% prevented, I think.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It absolutely could have been prevented, and yes, I do feel sorry for him.
But
after he makes his first kill, it's like, I can't feel sorry for you anymore, but I also know that it wasn't his fault.
Yeah.
Not completely. Not completely, anyway.
And let's face it, I mean, without this, then we wouldn't have awesome films like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Psycho, Silence of the Lambs.
Yep. And if you didn't have those, you're not having House of a Thousand Corpses. You're not, you just as things go.
Let's not forget, songs from, like you said, Slipknot, and also, songs from Slayer and all these awesome. One of my favorite songs is Dead Skin Mask.
Yeah,
Sorry.
That's a good one.
So,
yeah.
If a few people had to die for that, I guess it's probably worth it.
Is that how it goes? Oh man, okay.
I kid.
Yeah. So I was doing research for this, and I was sitting down, and I had never seen this one. It was like a mini doc kind of thing on YouTube, and it was only about an hour or 15, maybe something like that. And and there's some guy talking on there and telling some stuff that I was like, I've never heard that. I was like, I didn't know about that. Well, it turned out his name was Harold Schechter. It said underneath his name on the screen, and then it said he wrote this book called Deviant. And I was like, well, fuck it, I'll just order it. So before I ordered it, I searched it up on YouTube. Nothing but good reviews for it. So I was like, well, go ahead and order it. And it came in, I read it. Then when I read it the second time, I went through it with a highlighter. Yeah. And so this book is full. And then I was like, I can't. I was like, there's going to be 5 episodes if I throw all this shit in there. So then I went back.
A lot of details, man. Yeah, he really goes above and beyond.
Yeah. It's a great book. I think it's probably,
I would recommend it as well. It's probably one of the better books to cover any serial killer.
Yeah. So, and I know that this guy Schechter has wrote at least 2 others. I know he done H.H. Holmes, and then I know he's done another one too.
I knew the Holmes. I didn't know that he'd done another one besides.
Yeah, but I don't remember who it was for. It was just in passing that I see. Oh, like it popped up after I ordered the book and had it sent to me. But yeah, so I get into it.
We got to start somewhere, right?
All right. Well, I want to start right at the beginning with Ed's dad, because if you're looking for like shining stars or brightness at the end of the tunnel, there's not a lot in this story at all. So, Ed's dad, it was George Gein, and in 1879, his mom, dad, and older sister They're loading up the wagon to go into town to grab some supplies and bring them back to the house. But the Mississippi River was at full bank, and while they were on their journey, a flash flood came through, and they all drowned while George was 3.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I tried to figure out like exactly. I'm guessing like maybe they were cutting through the trail and it was flooded at one end, and so they tried to turn around maybe, but it was flooded at the other end too, and then
they're stuck.
Yeah. And then what happens? You're done. So
Creek gonna rise. Yeah.
So George ends up as an orphan, and the rest of his life isn't good either. I mean, he's what they called him, like a complete drunk, like a worthless person.
Yeah, that's what I got to him. Yeah,
absolutely depressed. But Ed's mom, Augusta, she came from a large industrious family that immigrated from Germany in 1870, and they moved to La Crosse, Wisconsin. So,
you betcha.
When George was 24, he met Augusta, who was 19 at the time. Now, George was super impressed with the fact that she had a large family because he had lost his at such an early age. So
right.
he liked that part of it, and she liked the fact that he was tall and well built.
So he was a good farmhand, basically.
Well, so she thought, and was she wrong. He was not a good. He might have looked like a good worker, but he certainly was not. But
yeah.
You don't have a lot to choose from, apparently, at that time. So they fell in love, and they got married on.
I don't know. Did they fall in love?
No. They fell in. We'll just settle. They fell in settlement. I felt that's how that worked.
You look like a good stock. I think you make good babies for us to have workers on farm. Yes.
So George was 24 and she was 19. And they got married on December 4th, 1899. And things were bad from the start. Augusta had to do everything to get George to do anything. He was worthless, and Augusta had all the strength.
They were polar opposites. I have no idea why in the fuck they ever got married.
Well, I don't know either, but once they did with Augusta's, I would say her religion was crippling, is probably the way I would put it.
Yeah.
Well, it certainly was to everybody around her anyway.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So there's no divorce. No divorce is going to happen. But so some of the things that I read that just, it had me laughing. On occasion, George would come home drunk, and Augusta would just, as soon as he staggered in, she'd just start screaming at him, telling him what a worthless piece of shit he was and how awful it was. They said he would just come at her once in a while. Sometimes he'd just walk by and ignore her, wouldn't talk to her for a couple of days and have nothing to do. But every once in a while, he'd be at the peak of all he could stand and just come at her with open hands. Just
like a slap fight?
Yeah. And she's still screaming at him, telling him how worthless he is.
Yeah.
And slapping back. So
oh my God.
But once George was finally done and she was on the ground, she would apparently go to her knees and pray for his death. So, I'm not picturing a married couple. I'm picturing siblings just fighting the shit out of each other.
Yeah. Crazy.
So I would love to hear this super religious woman's excuses on how praying for someone's death is okay.
Oh my God, we'll get into that later, I'm sure. But yeah. She was a piece of work for sure.
She does seem like the kind of person that you would want to hang out with, though, because her views on sex were that it was sin, it was an abomination, only fit for procreation, and even then should not be enjoyed.
Yeah, it was not an enjoyable act.
No, it should never be enjoyed. No one should ever like it. And this will
I don't know where
later.
She got those wires crossed, but god damn, did she ever get them crossed, right?
Oh, it came from her family. You'll find out later when when her funeral comes around. You'll find out, but she did want children. So she did invite George to her bed on at least 2 occasions, at least 2 times. And the
probably only 2 times.
Yeah. And I can imagine the procreation went something like, "Hurry the fuck up, George. You gross son of a bitch. Hurry up. Get out of here. You sinful piece of shit.
Do you think she had the German accent or do you think she had the Wisconsin accent?
She had the German accent. Thick. Big time thick. And I'm guessing she didn't want him going at her while he was drunk, so she probably tried to hit him up in the morning, see if he could get it over with a little bit quicker for how much she enjoyed it.
Oh, shit.
But the first one was born. Henry was born on January 17th of 1902. And so they went about their lives. She didn't like having a boy, but she raised the boy just fine because what was George going to do? So in 1909, George became the owner of a small grocery shop at 914 Caledonia Street. And George was listed as owner. 2 years later, Augusta was listed as proprietor and George was listed as the clerk. Because
I think, he was drinking all the beer, right?
Yeah, he couldn't do anything, right? He couldn't even stock the shelves like she wanted him to.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So it'd be like he would be up there or back doing the books and she'd be running the register or whatever. And then she'd have to go back there. He'd be like passed out or whatever. And she'd have to do that. So it finally came down to, nope, George, you're out. You're done. Yeah. And George didn't give a shit.
Now her, was it her brothers? They owned some grocery stores in the area too, right? And that's how they came in. Yeah.
So she knew what she was doing.
Business. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's why it was her idea, but he couldn't do anything right.
More than likely, she was trying to keep George on the straight and narrow, and it just didn't fucking work.
No, because while she was up there running the register or back even doing books, whatever it was, he was sneaking out on the hooch.
Oh yeah,
passed out.
And this was 1909, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you said? Okay.
Yeah, it was two. It would have been 2 years later that she took over, so we'd be about 1911. Yeah,
that's still 1911. A woman running a business. That's very unheard of at the time.
Yeah, but way better than George running it apparently, because at least it was still going. I think if she would have let him keep going, they'd have been homeless.
Yeah, for the most part. But definitely had a beer in the store.
Yeah, Augusta wants another baby, and she wants a girl. So she allows George to come back into her room again. Hurry up, George. Same old thing. So she prays for months for a girl. She wants a girl. And then on August 27th, 1906, Ed is born. And it's not a girl, but if this is what God wills, she's just going to do it. She's going to do it. And this boy won't be like all the others. He won't be like all the other men, the trash that walk. This kid will be different. And unlike thinking that her husband was a good worker, she's fucking right about that. He is different.
Yeah.
By a long shot.
By a mile. Yeah.
So Ed, as a toddler, one of his first things that he remembers happening to him in the book was that he was standing at the top of the stairs and he started to lose his balance because that's what toddlers do.
Yeah.
And he thinks he's going to fall, and all of a sudden he feels an arm grab him, and it's his mom, and she caught him and kept him from falling down the stairs, and she starts yelling at him, probably because she was scared that her baby was going to get hurt, but it hurt him so bad because he felt like he let his mom down.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's serious scarring at a very young age, man.
If you remember that from the time you were a toddler, that your mom yelled at you for almost falling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what was he doing next to the steps in the first place then? Keep an eye on your kid. I mean, we got a fireplace. I wouldn't let the kids near it when they were learning to walk. It's like, what are you doing?
What the fuck? Yeah.
But he did. He felt somehow that he let her down. And then another thing that he did, he was a bit older when this happened. So I'll be going back in time a little bit, but forward in time here. His mom had given him some change to go down the block. Is like 1 block away to the German baker shop to get a loaf of bread and bring it back. So George gets down there. He's lost the change. Probably holes in his pockets. I don't know.
Possibly, yeah.
But he was a bit of a whiner, bit of a crier, bit of a softie, which is fine. But he just starts crying uncontrollably. and goes home to tell his mom that not only did I not get the bread,
I lost the money.
Yeah. And so her words of love to him were, "You wretched child, only a mother could love you."
You wretched child. Only a mother could love you.
But I have to think like between the discipline and the loving, it was just like abuse on almost both ways. It's like, I'm gonna run you down.
Turn him into a bit of a masochist in a way.
Well, yeah, you had to go through the suffering to get the loving. Maybe. Yeah, that makes sense. That does.
Yeah.
But behind the store where they worked there's a wooding out building, and he was not allowed to go there.
Forbidden, correct.
Forbidden. Yeah. Absolutely forbidden to go. But what does kids do when they're forbidden from entering places?
They go in and they check it out.
Super fucking curious.
Oh, yeah.
So he goes to this outbuilding, and he sneaks up because he hears some noises, and he pokes his head in just enough to see that his mom and dad are out there, and they are butchering a pig. It's hanging up, foreshadowing, it's hanging up by its hind legs, and it's been split down the middle, entrails taken out, everything. Yep. His mother and father are standing there in their big leather aprons, blood all over them. And he remembers this for the rest of his life because he must have made a noise, I'm guessing, whatever, because it shocked him. And his mom turned and looked at him, but I guess didn't say anything. He just walked away. So that stuck with him for the rest of his life. He talked about that. So those three things with his mom, he talked about the rest of his life.
Yeah, that's I think that's some very serious foreshadowing as far as future events that would occur.
Yeah, because of course his dad couldn't do anything right. So his dad was basically just holding the pig while his mom was doing all the work. So when he's seen his mom gutting this pig, and then later he does what he does. So in 1913, Augusta decided they should become farmers. So they moved to a dairy farm about 40 miles east of La Crosse, and for unknown reasons, they stayed less than a year. If I had to guess, there was probably too many harlots too close to where they were living, and she just couldn't take it. So they had to move again. So in 1914, they moved again to a 195-acre farm in Plainfield, and locals called it the Old John Greenfield place. The farm was purchased and deeded to Augusta and not to George, of course, because, well,
he's a worthless piece of shit. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. And Augusta ran a tight ship and kept that place as nice as possible, as neat as a pin, as she liked to say, because she knew that there were bigger farms that she couldn't afford, but at least what she could do with what they had was make it the most pristine that it could absolutely be.
Right.
So that's a lot. I don't know. A lot of her drive was what people thought of her and her control she could have on other people. It feels like.
Yeah, for sure.
As we go.
And now in Plainfield, you want to go into Plainfield? Because it's not much to look at. It's not much to talk about either, right? I mean, it's just pretty fucking boring.
It's pretty plain.
Yeah. And there's not a lot of people there. Obviously, that's why she wanted to move there.
Yeah, and this farm that they had bought was located 6 miles west of Plainfield, so you got 6 miles to drive just to even get in town. Yeah, and their house had no electricity and no indoor plumbing, and it never would for the entire time that house stood. But when Ed was 8, he attended Rocha Cree grade school, and that school merged with the white school, and he attended till the age of 16. He managed well enough in all subjects. Like, he was passing grades, like not super great student, but certainly not Forrest Gump level or anything like that.
Right. He tested pretty in the average, didn't he? Not in an IQ. Yeah.
Except for reading, he was well above average on reading.
And reading. Yeah.
Super strong reader. Once again, no electricity. That's what they did. And here is something that in my mind is the most heartbreaking thing about this. When Ed, who most of the kids in school would give him a hard time because they said he was like very girly is what they would call him. Like his mannerisms, the way he spoke, he'd talk with his hands. whatever, which is fine because kids are awful. But when your father is worse than the fucking children at school, making fun of you for being girly and telling you that, what a fucking asshole.
That'll fuck with your psyche a lot. Yeah.
So, and when he did make a friend, he would come home, and of course he had to tell his mom because she needs to know everything that's going on. She would start in with whatever the kid's name was. She would start in talking like, yes, but did you know that his mom has done this and that his father did this? And then by the end of her spiel, she's fucking screaming at him, yelling at him, oh, what a terrible person this is, to the point that when he went to school the next day, even if that kid tried to talk to him, he was like, ooh, and just ignore him and walk away.
Yeah. Ben Franklin's not the devil, Mama. You are.
So basically, it's pretty hardcore water boy.
Yeah. Water boy all the time.
Yeah. So, but the girls would catch him staring, but no one was ever like super creeped out. They just thought, well, that's weird, Ed. And he had a thing. He did have a thing on his left eye. He had a mole that was heavy.
Mole. Yeah. He had like a saggy, droopy.
Yeah. Well, one of the kids had said at one time it was Ed's saggy, baggy eye. And Ed just broke down, just bawling.
Yeah. He hated that.
Yeah, but
saggy, baggy eye.
Yeah, I gotta feel bad for this kid. Just his dad's a piece of shit. His mom, even if he comes home with something that he feels bad about, she's going to ridicule him and make him feel worse before she brings him back up again. And it's only because of her that he gets brought back up. So yeah,
poor little saggy baggy.
Yeah, I know it. But George was letting the farm just go to shit, like not taking care of anything, and he was drunk and abusive until the boys got to an age where he couldn't be abusive anymore, and then he was just verbally abusive. But he would beat on him, and Augusta too. So Augusta took on his work.
Yeah,
and she wouldn't leave, and divorce was out of the question.
Yeah, it was not allowed. It's not
a thing praying for his death was less of a sin than divorcing him.
And that's saying something, isn't it? I mean,
it's saying something.
Dear Lord, please kill this fucking worthless piece of shit. Amen.
Every night before going to bed.
Out loud in front of him.
In separate rooms. Yeah. Oh, I bet he wasn't allowed in her bedroom. Only the 2 times.
2 times,
She really wanted a daughter, but was unwilling to go through that again. Trying to get one. So here's the thing. After work's done on the farm and it's dark, well, there's no TV, there's no radio because there's no power. So what do they do? The boys sit cross-legged on the floor in front of Augusta's chair while she reads from the Bible.
No.
Yep. And all of her favorite passages, now they're in the book. They're in the book, Deviant. But here's the main thing. Everything that she could find in there to make women seem like the worst thing that could ever happen on the planet. And she'd word it to make it sound that way. Stay away from women. Don't have anything to do with women. Women are filthy.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
She was a real place to work, boy. Woo!
She even told him about just masturbation because the sin of owning is a lesser sin than having sex with a woman.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if she showed him how.
I bet she did. She was that freaky. She was that freaky.
That, and they're so isolated that, well, I mean, surely you would figure it out, but I don't know. She might have told him how to do it. I'm hoping she didn't show him, but I wouldn't put it past her.
I mean, it's Ed Gein. I mean,
yeah, but Henry wasn't as bad because Henry didn't listen to her as much, and he actually did try to talk to girls later on.
Yeah,
when like in high school, it just never worked out for him. He was like, once again, she kept him so
Isolated.
Yeah, that they didn't have any social
Right.
norms. They didn't know what they were. They didn't know what to do.
She wanted to be their whole world, and that's what she was.
100%. Yes. Yep. That's it. It was everything else was garbage and the worst thing that could ever happen. And that's just the end of it.
Yeah.
Oh, so by 1937, George could no longer do anything. He was bedridden. They had to take care of him. Still abusive, but also not fucking doing anything.
Right.
Just yelling at him.
Give me a beer and wipe my ass.
I think it was just like probably straight Everclear or whiskey or whatever the fuck they could make on the probably some of the, you could probably run your car on whatever he was drinking. Him and Doris were cheersing. So 3 years later, George died. He had drank himself to death. And the funeral was April 4th, 1940. And I just wrote this down because I thought it was, I don't know if it's sad or just fucking funny, but it was at R.A. Goult's furniture store and funeral home.
Dual purpose, man. I mean,
it was definitely dual purpose. Yeah. Oh, is everybody standing? Would you like to buy a chair? We have chairs. You can buy.
See that couch you're sitting on right there? It's on sale. It's like you can get 50% off. You're already here. You might as well just take it home with you.
The floor models that are covered in people's tears, those are cheaper.
Yeah, for sure.
So the fun thing is after his dad died, it was like Ed didn't have to pick up any extra shit because his dad wasn't fucking doing anything anyway.
So
So he did his same old odd jobs that he would do all the time. So in 1942, Henry was too old for the military, but Ed did travel to Milwaukee for the first and only time that he traveled that far away from home. He went to Milwaukee, but he failed his military exam because his eye.
Saggy baggy eye.
So I imagine he cried himself all the way home. But
shoot.
Yeah, so that's the farthest he ever traveled, and that's the farthest he would ever travel. And so he comes back home and he does his odd jobs. He was a handyman, hanging windows, patching roofs, painting houses, and babysitting.
Which is weird.
Yeah. Well, actually, they said he was great with kids because he understood them. Like he could relate to children. He couldn't relate to adults like, humans. So he completely related to the kids. It was like he would roughhouse with the boys. He would tell the girls. He would do magic tricks for the girls and tell them all stories because he was a good neighbor, unlike his mother. Like most people didn't like his mom because she didn't like them because they were better. Augusta thought they were better. You people are the problem with the world, and we hate you.
Yeah.
But he would tell the kids stories because he, once again, great reader. And he read all like these adventure magazines and stuff like that. Tell them about headhunters, pirates, crazy shit like that. The kids want to hear about because Ed was right there with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Henry was a harder worker, mostly because Augusta didn't care so much about him.
She pretty much given up on him, and Ed was going to be the one good man. That was her whole deal, right? Like she gave up on. She gave up on him the moment he came out with a penis. Yeah, she just didn't care for Henry. She was like, well, whatever. I mean, I'll raise him because I have to. I mean, he could help on the farm. I think basically she was, that's how she looked at it, probably. Yeah, yeah.
But Henry did get employment away from the farm because he didn't listen to his mother as much. And so he was a foreman overseeing some Jamaican farm workers.
Man. What the fuck are we doing in Wisconsin, man?
Exactly.
This makes no sense. It's too fucking cold, man.
Exactly. What an absolute 360 or 180 flip from what you're used to.
Right.
Fucking Wisconsin.
Right. Oh, what's this you got there? That's the weed, man. You want some weed? Well, gosh, golly darn, yeah, that sounds really nice. You betcha. Oh my God.
But Ed was super impressed by this. It was like, he never had a father figure because his father was a piece of shit. So I think he did kind of look up to Henry as a bit of a father figure. Like
Well,
this, he was saying.
that's the only one he had to look up to. Yeah,
That was it.
I can get it. Yeah.
And they got along very well. It seems more to me like Henry was just kind of, he would sit down and listen to his mother because that's what he was expected to do. But he wasn't heartfelt in it like Ed was.
Yeah, he was just going through the motions. Like, yeah, whatever, you fucking crazy bitch.
Yeah, and so I do think Henry was also protective of his brother because they stayed so close, and they were in their. Henry was in his late 30s. Nope, 40.
I was going to say 40s.
He was in his 40s, and Ed was getting close to 40s by the time Henry finally told him. He said, "Your attachment to mom is it's too close." Weird. Yeah. It's getting a little weird, and maybe, she might not be right about some stuff. Just trying to help his brother out. But boy, that didn't suit Ed.
Will, I don't like that at all. I don't like that at all.
So
what a weirdo.
So I'm putting that in right before this next thing that happens because it's a weird little predicament they get in. Yeah. But Ed said it was Henry's idea to start this brush fire to burn off some brush that they had on the grounds. And the fire gets a little bit out of control, so they're out there trying to slow it down and stop it. The smoke gets a bit much, and they get a bit separated, and it gets a bit too dark. Ed loses sight of his brother, can't find him, waits, and this is what Ed says, waits till it's dark, goes into town to tell the people, hey, I can't find my brother. I can't find my brother. I don't know where he's at. I've lost him out there in the fire. So a bunch of people come out to help. Ed walks them immediately, like he didn't stray from a path. He walked straight to where his brother's dead body was laying.
Isn't that a coincidence?
Well, it was by Thursday, May 18th, it was ruled asphyxiation. But the problem is, now here's the facts of it, is that his brother was laying face down in the burnt ground, but his clothes weren't charred, his skin wasn't burnt, his hair wasn't burnt, and there were bruises on the back of his head that must have been from where he fell down and hit that rock.
Or maybe that's the bruises from the rock that Ed
hit him in the back of the head.
Yeah, killed him with. Yeah.
So,
I know it's speculatory, but I think this is victim number one.
Yes,
this is victim number one. Yeah. I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks. He fucking killed his brother.
He went against mama, and that's all it took.
Don't you talk about my mama.
I think that's what it was. I certainly do. I thought we was on the same team, but apparently you're not. You're against mama, and if you're against mama, you're against me, and you have to go.
Yep.
You don't deserve her love if you don't follow it the way I do.
And now I got mama all to myself.
Yeah, and apparently the investigations that they went into back in the day were fucking nothing.
Well, yeah. I mean, there was no forensics or anything like that. It was just like, well, this boy right here, I don't think he heard a fly, so I reckon this boy did die from asphyxiation right there. Mm-hmm. Sound good to me. Mm-hmm.
Well, they asked Ed, is like, well, how did you walk us straight out here to it? He said, funny how that happens. And he did his little giggle because he's always got a grin and he's weird as fuck. So to me, I do believe that that's his first murder. And if it was that fucking easy to convince like every single person in town, no, I didn't do it. How could I possibly do it? I'm just a scrawny fella.
I'd never heard a fly.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that was just like, that was more of a, later on in life, he was like, hey, I got away with that. I can get away with anything. Yeah. I mean, that was nailed, open, shut, closed case. What the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah.
But shortly after this, the death of Henry, Augusta complained of feeling faint and sick, and Ed rushed her to the hospital in his vehicle. She had suffered a stroke, and Ed stayed by her bedside for as long as the hospital would let him. Just every day he was there, not doing anything on the farm. Like his mom was giving him shit. You need to be on the farm doing stuff. He wouldn't. He would stay there until they made him leave. He would go home, come back the next day as soon as he could. And by the time she's able to come home, Ed's mom now. Ed gets to be mom.
Yeah.
this small man picks her up out of her wheelchair and carries her upstairs to her room to lay her in bed. And she's like a close to 300-pound woman. And everybody talks about how, scrawny Ed was. There's no way he could do these things, but he was farm strong. Farm strong people are fucking badass.
They're tougher than fuck. Yeah, you can't.
Yeah.
You don't fuck with a farm boy.
Yeah. So it was like he's by her bed all day, every day, reading to her out of the Bible, all the stories she wants to hear. He's doing everything that she needs. And by mid-1945, she was ready to try to walk. And Ed, I don't think he wanted her to. I think he was loving being mom. But
I'm sure.
He was trying to help her. And her quote was, "Move away, boy. I can manage myself." So she did get...
Move away, boy. I can manage myself. I don't know.
It probably sounded pretty close to that. After a stroke, who knows? I mean,
you betcha. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm torn on this one because it's like I imagine this big German version of Augusta Gloop from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
I don't think her German accent ever went away because they said it was super heavy. So, but by the winter of 1945, they still had some livestock, and Ed needed to get some straw to feed the livestock. But once again, she going back to him losing the change to go get fucking bread when he was like 8 years old. She can't let him go by himself.
Child, only a mother could love you.
Yeah,
that whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So they went to a man's house. They went to the Smith farm to buy. They had to get, this is so bad. Some
straw. Yeah.
Yeah. This is so bad. So they get to the Smith farm, and Mr. Smith is out in the front yard beating the fuck out of this dog with a stick. And they get out of the car. He's out there beating it, yelling, and some woman comes running out the front door and she's screaming at him to stop, but he won't quit. He beats the fucking dog to death.
Oh my God.
Beats it to death with a fucking stick while this woman's on the porch screaming and crying for him to quit. Less than a week later, Augusta has a stroke and Ed has to rush her to the hospital. Now, seeing this activity is what made Augusta have the stroke.
And it was Nazi puppies. Nazi puppies.
No. She didn't give a rat's ass about that fucking dog. That bitch that came out of that house was not married to that man, and she was there, and that is the cause of everything evil in this world. No shit. It was
Nazi puppies.
That is
900 puppies.
That is what pushed.
Oh my God! Yeah, she basically she killed herself, just like bitching about somebody else having sex out of wedlock.
For an entire week, she went off not about the dog being beaten to death by some fucking piece of shit asshole, but because they weren't married.
Yeah, that's fucking weird. Now, a true Christian would get down and pray for them people, and they would say, "Dear Lord, please forgive them of their sins, and please forgive that man for killing that puppy." But
unless you're a dirty fucking harlot from hell like that bitch was. I don't even understand what happened in this woman's life.
She's got her whole heart's just hateful. I don't know.
It is. It's black. It's black as night.
Yeah.
But on December 29th, she died at the age of 67 from a cerebral brain hemorrhage. She
stroked out.
Yeah, and then brain hemorrhaged herself to death.
Yeah. Bitching about people having sex out of wedlock. What a way to go.
Yeah. So
much like every, when she's sitting there praying for her husband's death the whole time, I'm sure after she was gone, everybody's like, whew, thank God she's out here.
Oh, see, at the funeral, hardly anybody from town showed up. Well, it's like, there's that uppity bitch. She's dead, so we don't have to deal with her anymore.
Right.
Telling us how horrible we are. Now, here's a little something, too, from her past. Of the people that showed up to the funeral, some of Augusta's family did show up. 2 of her brothers. Guess what's up with those 2?
I already know, but yeah, go ahead and tell me.
They're not married.
Yeah, they also never were
elderly
married.
men that aren't married, never got married. Yeah. So
Yeah.
something in that family is just what the fuck.
Yeah, a little too hardcore.
Yeah, but Ed is there and sobbing like a baby. They said his
Of
face
course.
was covered in tears and snot.
Poor bastard.
They even said one local woman, because nobody would come up and talk to him, because it was like you weren't going to get a word in anyway, because how much he was. She was just too good for this world. And some lady came up and said, well, at least she's not suffering anymore. He's like, yeah, she was too good for all that suffering. And now I'm alone.
Oh,
Hey,
poor Ed.
yeah, probably shouldn't have killed your fucking brother. So,
But he was talking bad about my mama.
so
Yeah.
but then after the funeral was over and he went home, they said it didn't change him much. He would still do odd jobs for all the people that needed help. It seemed like the same Ed, just that little grin on his face, just doing the same old shit. He did let his appearance go a little bit more. He said
he wasn't big on bathing after that either, right?
No, he wasn't big on bathing in the first place, but after this, it was even worse. So yeah, it wasn't like he was going to try to impress a woman, some fucking harlot to steal his soul. Are you kidding me?
Right.
I can't have that.
I also, before we get too far away from it, I want to put in the point that when George died, his dad died, there was a nice long obituary listed in the paper.
Oh yeah. I didn't want to get into all that shit. Yeah, because
But this is how much Augusta was not liked in the community, because when she died, she literally got like maybe 4 sentences.
Like there was like 3 lines.
Yeah, like she died on such and such. She's survived by her son. That's about it. Like,
it was the equivalent of, oh well, that bitch is dead. Her son still lives in the house. That was the end. End of obituary.
Yeah.
So old Eddie had to start. He had to start selling livestock off to pay for stuff, and then back to working on jobs. But here's the thing about the town: threshing times comes around. If a farmer needed him, he was there to help, and they would make fun of him and stuff like that. But every time somebody needed him, they'd ask him, "Yes, I'll do it. Yeah, I'm there."
Yeah.
So it seems like if the community would have came together and maybe shown this guy like a little bit of something, a little bit of empathy of any kind, I don't think things would have happened. But like the threshing things, I remember this from whenever I was a kid, because I'd get asked, "Hey, do you want to come by and bale hay?" And this is going to really date me. $5 an hour to bale hay, which is a fucking back-breaking job. At the end of the day,
$5? Fuck.
Yeah, you start at like 5 in the morning, and then I don't know, 6 or 7 in the evening. You're finally done with it, and then the wife would have like this huge spread that put like Thanksgiving dinner to shame. So everybody would go in there and eat, get up and go outside, and you'd sit there and have a couple beers and talk about the day, and then go home, go to sleep. Well, they would do that, but when all the men came in to eat, Ed would come in at the end. He'd wait for everybody to get their plates and sit down, and then he'd go last. And then he'd sit there and eat. And then the men would go outside, have smokes, have a beer, bullshit. Right. He would sit inside and just watch the ladies. And they said it.
Oogle.
They said Oogle. Yeah. But if one of them turned around and looked back at him like eye to eye, he would just get up real quick and he would go over and rinse his plate and all his stuff off, which most of the guys didn't do. They just left their dirty plates on it, which fucking savages. But but he would actually rinse all of his shit off. But so yeah, as soon as the women would turn around and notice him, he would run away. But then a lot of the women did feel sorry for him, because some of them would bake cookies and stuff for Christmas and take it out there and drop it off to him. Yeah. And then some of the dudes in town, dudes are dudes. We are what we are. They would fuck with Ed, have Ed sit down, because Ed hardly ever drank, probably because his dad showed him what not to do.
Right.
So they would take a beer and pour half of it out and fill it up with brandy and then hand it to him. He'd sit there and drink it. Well, of course he'd be fucking blasted, because he didn't weigh but $1.05 and he fucking never drank. Right. So they stuck a smoke bomb underneath the truck, underneath his truck hood, and gave him shit because he wouldn't hunt deer, because he said the blood, it would make him pass out. he couldn't
Sight of blood.
stand. Yeah, sight of blood. Couldn't stand, but he could with little game like squirrels, rabbits, and stuff like that. He was okay
Right.
with, but the sight of blood would. Oh, he couldn't handle it.
Which is odd.
It is odd. It's an odd man.
That's a common theme with this guy. Is everybody says he was just a little odd.
Oddball. Yeah, he was a bit of an oddball. That's reoccurring as shit and deviant. That comes up like constantly, like when they was asking the town people like what they thought of it. A little bit of an oddball, but he was a good dude. Everything about him seemed fine. So he started to retreat more, and he wouldn't leave the house. And there was like an 8-year period basically where he almost never left the house. Somebody came by to ask for something, he would do it. Yeah. But he was basically reading, and he ate pork and beans.
And that's all he ate, right?
That's it. He would go to, I forget the name of the store. It'll come up in episode 2, the lady that owned the store, her and her husband that owned the store. He would go in there and buy them like out of pork and beans. He would come home. There was only 3 rooms in the house that he would use anymore because he locked up all the other stuff where his mom's room was and stuff like that. He would lock it up.
He boarded everything up, yeah.
Yep. Open up a can of beans and set it on top of a stove that he had. Stir it with his finger as soon as it was like, I don't know, a bit more than room temperature. Would eat it while he read his little books, and he would go to bed on I can only imagine is the nastiest fucking rodent field fucking mattress that there could fucking soil. He
was not the cleanest man. Yeah, for sure.
No, he wasn't.
Think of hoarders and then multiply that by 1 million. And you're getting close. You're getting close to the smell.
The smell. Once again, we got to get away from it. Okay. So the only place that he would go now toward the end of his time, he would go to Mary Hogan's Tavern. And he wasn't a big beer drinker, but he would go there because she was a middle-aged woman, about 200 pounds, with a heavy German accent.
Sounds like somebody familiar.
Yeah, but I can't put my finger on it because she's underground. So she was a strong businesswoman, but there was bad rumors in her past. Okay, so there was rumors of her being twice divorced. What a fucking harlot. I mean, that's 2 times harlot. That's double over harlot. I mean, she's doubled down. Apparently, she might have had mob ties because she moved from Chicago, which that could be believable. But how could she be alive while his poor mom laid in the ground dead?
That's kind of messed up, isn't it?
A little bit. And that is where we will end this episode. Next episode, we'll get fucking gross.
Really fucking gross. Like really fucking gross. Yeah. So gross.
But
bring a vomit bag.
Going through some of that stuff. I mean, just reading this book, like, because what I didn't give it the full, I didn't give it all the juice that this book Deviant gives it. So if you're interested, read it. But I was reading as him being a kid. I never think about, I don't know. I guess when I'm going through these things, I don't think about me being a kid because I got picked on, but I didn't give a fuck. Like, it's like whatever. You get picked on. I always put my children. I put my children in that space, and then it makes me feel bad. So for me to be like, how could this mother act that way to her son, or how could this father? Oh, he's feminine. I fucking hate him. I was like, what a fucking asshole.
Well, it's different times, I guess, and I think his mom fucked him up way worse than his dad ever did.
100%. Yes. But that being said, also too, if he would have had a strong father figure, I don't know that he might have been like, why don't you stop messing with his head like that? Or,
stood up for him a little bit and tried to make him a little more independent.
Yeah, because it gets back to that. He lost the change to buy the fucking bread. If my boy came home bawling like that because he lost the money, I wouldn't start scolding him. I would feel bad.
Yeah,
like,
be like, hey,
dude,
shit happens.
It's like a couple bucks. I could go, no big deal.
Yeah. Well, It's gonna get really dirty really quick next time.
Oh yeah,
Thanks, man.
I was just wanting to set the scene because it was one of those things where I had felt sorry for Ed before, but then after reading this book, I do feel sorry for him even more.
Yeah, he was tortured by his mother
and father,
but more.
And then the one that
I'm gonna go 75-25 on that.
Yeah, because his dad didn't really give a shit. Yeah, I mean, he came home drunk and pissed. He might slap him around because you fucking little girl, fucking, whatever.
Right.
And then his mom did want a daughter so much that she raised him that. But I don't know. Maybe he was that way in the first place. I mean, either way, he needed nourishment, not fucking punishment.
Right. Well, we'll find out what happens next week, I guess, right?
Yeah. I'm ready to go.
Cool. Guys, thanks again for continuing to like, rate, and review the podcast. You can email us at hmfppod@gmail.com if you'd like to share anything. And, let us know if you've got any crazy stories like Dylan had. That was a crazy episode. I really enjoyed that.
Man, that was so much fun. And going back and listening to it whenever it came out, I was just like, oh man, that was a good time. Just going over there and hearing these stories and then being able to see like where he's seen stuff. Like of course there wasn't a full on ghost hunt or anything, but man, it was just, I don't know. I think it adds something to it.
For sure. Just the picture alone freaks me the fuck out. So
yeah, it seems like it's popped up pretty good that people were going and watching the YouTube video and then had more subscribers to Facebook since we did that. It's kind of like people want to see proof. So the more people that can, if you've got something like that, send it in. Let's do this.
Yeah, we'll cover it for sure. Yeah. All right, guys. Until next time, I'm Zach.
Spar.
And we'll see you next Tuesday.
Later.
It's evil! Don't touch it!
I was with you.
They're coming to get you.
God of Christ.
This is Hello, Mr. Fancy Pants.
Come down to Ed Gein's Nipple Belt Emporium. We got more nipples and belts.